Over 1,500 construction companies have just collapsed in New South Wales alone. This is happening all over the country. Nationally, more than 3,500 construction companies have gone under. At the same time, the government has quietly wiped 95,000 promised homes off the construction pipeline. Because of that, thousands of Aussie families are now stranded. They are stuck in an already broken rental market, wondering if they will actually ever get a place to call their own. Hey guys, it's Scott here. Now, not long ago, I did a video exposing how the government was quietly making the housing crisis worse by cancelling thousands of new builds and also artificially inflating land prices. At the time, I generally thought that was as bad as it was going to get. Then over the weekend, I started digging into what is actually happening inside the construction industry, and what I found was actually far worse. What you need to know is to get out of this housing crisis, we are going to need tradies, but we're also going to need building companies to build the homes that we need to ease the crisis. The government keeps rolling out massive housing targets like 1.2 million homes as a flashy PR strategy to shut everyone up about the housing crisis, but it did not even bother to ask the basic questions. Are there enough building companies and are there enough tradies in this country to get the job done? Is there enough funding accessible to builders, or are they just throwing numbers around to look busy? This is a failure at the most basic level. The most basic responsibility of any government is to make sure its citizens can access a fundamental need, which is somewhere to live. And instead of fixing this mess, we are staring at the government's biggest corruption scandal, where up to $30 billion of taxpayer money may have been swallowed by criminal infiltration and outright rorting on construction sites. I've done a video on that as well. This is a real thing. The corruption on our building sites is really hurting this country. This is insane. So in this video, I'm going to blow this wide open. I'm going to show you real case studies of Aussie families left stranded and builders going bust. I'm going to expose the corrupt government practices and explain how deliberate inaction is choking off supply. I have pieced this together so that you don't have to. Stay with me to the end because I'll tell you how this impacts you and what you should brace for and how your taxpayer money is being exploited by the government. And if you want straight talking breakdowns on property and the economy, your money, your financial future without the spin, hit subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss one of my videos. I do these videos every single day. Let's get into it. Before we go any further, I want to make something very, very clear. Not all builders are the same. The majority of building collapses are happening at the weaker end of the market, where companies are operating on extremely thin margins with very little financial buffer. Now, large established builders with strong balance sheets and access to funding are still delivering projects and bringing new supply to the market, supply we desperately need. And I fully support anyone helping bring new housing into Australia. Builders, developers, investors, first-time buyers, buying new builds, anyone contributing to increasing supply is part of the solution. So this video is not an attack on builders. This is about exposing what is breaking the system around them, because if the industry that builds homes starts collapsing, the crisis does not get better. And it's also to warn you, do your due diligence before choosing your building company. Okay, let's start with something most people do not understand. The construction industry was already fragile before all of this blew up. This is one of the most financially precarious industries in Australia. Margins are razor thin. Builders win jobs by underbidding each other. They sign fixed price contracts. They lock in a price. Then they pray that nothing goes wrong. When costs rise, they cannot just turn around and ask for more money. They've already locked away a fixed contract. They will wear the loss. Now lay this over what we have just seen. In the last financial year alone, 1,567 construction companies collapsed in New South Wales. Nationally, 3,596 construction businesses went into insolvency. That is a 35% jump from the year before. Between July and December alone, more than 5,000 construction businesses were already in serious distress. Every time one of these builders collapses, it is not just the builder that goes down. Subcontractors, electricians, concreters, and carpenters are left hanging. They're not getting paid. It becomes a domino effect. And while all of this is happening, the government stands there announcing housing targets as if targets build homes. So my question to the government is, who is going to build 1.2 million homes? Because productivity in construction has barely improved for decades. In fact, it's going backwards. Across Australia, hours worked in home building have fallen by around 53% since the mid-1990s. Even after adjusting for bigger and better homes, productivity is still down around 12% compared to decades ago. Meanwhile, the broader economy improved productivity by about 49% over the same period. So we are demanding from the industry a record housing output that has actually not modernized, has not materially improved productivity, and is financially bleeding out right now. Imagine your boss tripled your workload without adding any extra staff to help you get the job done. That is what we are doing to tradies right now. And then we act shocked when the system cracks. What does all this lead to? It leads to a continuation of the housing crisis. What does that mean for the few people that build the few new homes that we do build? It means massive asset inflation and price growth for them. Now let us talk about why these builders are collapsing. A huge number of builders signed fixed price contracts in 2023 and 2024. Then what happened was material costs surged, labor costs rose by 20 to 30% in some cases in just a couple of years. Interest rates went from 0.1% to 4.35% after 13 rate hikes. So imagine you signed a contract to build a home for a fixed price 2 years ago, you locked it in, then suddenly your material costs are up 30% and your finance costs have quadrupled. You are legally obligated to finish the job, but every day you show up to the site, you are losing money. That is how vulnerable builders work themselves into insolvency. And then we add ongoing tensions in the Middle East, shipping volatility, energy price spikes, projects that barely stack up suddenly do not stack up at all. That is why the government quietly scrapped projects in Western Sydney because they were not commercially feasible. That is why more than 82,000 homes across Australia won't get built because our government didn't bother investing in basic infrastructure like sewage, roads, and water connections. At this point, the government's incompetence has stopped surprising me. How does Albo and his crew think that he can build houses without roads and sewage? Announcing a target does not magically create plumbing. When will the government realize this? Now let's move on to the most heart-wrenching part of this video. So right now, we do not have enough construction workers, and actually, surveys show 63% of the workforce is considering leaving the industry altogether. These are the people we are relying on to fix the housing crisis. They are under contract pressure and under cash flow stress right now. Many have not been paid for completed work because of the issues I covered at the beginning of this video. Others are trapped in fixed price contracts that are now underwater. They are watching their savings evaporate in real time. Instead of stabilizing the industry, the government keeps pumping out headline targets like everything is fine. Well, it is not fine. We need this fixed yesterday. We need more construction workers, but it was only in about the last 12 months that we actually added them to the skills migration visa checklist to bring them in from overseas so that we've got enough people to actually get the job done. So when the government realizes it can no longer bring on new supply, it quietly scraps almost 100k new homes without giving families any explanation. Projects in growth areas were counted in future supply numbers, then they were quietly frozen or cancelled. I want to give a couple examples here. In Appin, around 13,000 homes were talked about in planning documents, but only about 2,500 are currently allowed to proceed because infrastructure is not there. Nationally, more than 82,000 homes are in a very similar situation and they're actually stuck and will not get built. If you stack all these cancellations, freezes, and commercial walkaways together, then you are approaching around 95,000 homes effectively missing from the pipeline in just 1 year. That is why house prices are not easing and why Aussies feel locked out. It honestly feels like the government is gaslighting us and has no intention to resolve the housing crisis. Basically, if you're trying to get on the property ladder or you're trying to find somewhere affordable to rent, you're a little bit of a sitting duck. Now I want to talk about the corruption. On top of everything else, the industry is now facing allegations of serious corruption connected to government-funded construction projects. Investigations have revealed claims that up to $30 billion of taxpayer money may have been lost through fraud, waste, and criminal infiltration across major construction projects. There have been reports of workers allegedly being paid twice for the same hours, highly paid roles that appear unnecessary, and organized criminal figures operating around construction sites. This is all happening while households are being told that budgets are tight and governments cannot afford to build more housing. Billions of dollars may have been leaking out of the system meant to deliver the housing. Either leadership was aware of these problems and allowed them to continue, or leadership did not know what was happening under their own watch. Neither possibility inspires confidence. So what happens next? If builders keep collapsing, if tradies keep leaving, if infrastructure lags, and if corruption inflates costs, supply will remain constrained. That means rents will stay elevated. House prices will remain supported. Growth will remain supported. New builds now increasingly sit above the $1 million mark to build. This is because land, compliance, materials, financing, and risk premiums are all stacked on top of each other. The government has already admitted housing targets are likely to be missed. You cannot build 1.2 million homes with an industry that is not rock solid. And when supply undershoots demand, everyday Aussies pay the price. The government can keep announcing big targets, but until the system is fixed, those targets mean absolutely nothing. So the real question is simple. Do you trust the government to deliver, or should we brace for the housing crisis to get worse beyond 2026? Please comment on your thoughts and your opinions below. If you want straight talking breakdowns on property and the economy without any of the spin, hit subscribe and hit the bell, and I'll see you guys at the next video.